So rolling along here in London, we've got another special guest, Sam Johnston, who's with Equinix, and he's the Director of Cloud and IT Services there. So we're pretty privileged to have him, and just kind of getting a feel for what you've been up to and how things have been going at Equinix.
Okay, so look, I joined Equinix from Google about a year ago, and I'm basically looking at Equinix as a co-location provider. We've got 99 data centers now in almost 40 markets around the world. And so looking at, having worked at a large cloud provider, what cloud providers are looking for, and how our products align with that, and building an ecosystem of best-of-breed cloud providers, basically.
Yes, so it's been quite a departure, though, from going for a pure, I don't know, would you call Google they're kind of like a monster of a cloud in a way internally, going and kind of applying that same stuff that you learned at Google. Is there applicability going to Equinix, lessons learned in infrastructure and architecture and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in enterprise architecture, computer architecture. I built a small data center in Sydney a long time ago, and part of one of the highlights, I think, of being at Google, I worked on the server and storage platform, which gave me access to all of the Google data centers, and I did visit all the Google data centers in the time I was there, and in doing so, developed a keen interest in how you do computing at scale. Sure. and how that differs from how you might have done computing in a traditional legacy heterogeneous environment. So it's definitely something that I'm very interested in. Cloud is both a threat and an opportunity, I think, for data center providers. I'm obviously more see it an opportunity, otherwise I wouldn't have joined Equinix, but it's a very, very fast moving field for something that you would think is power, space and cooling. There's actually a lot going on.
Well, and kind of dig into that a little bit further. I mean, cloud is such a vague term, obviously. For Equinix, what kind of plays are you guys going through right now in terms of offerings to the market and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, cloud. It is a cloudy term. It's for me, it's quite simple. It's the natural progression of a good, a product to a service. So we've obviously had service providers providing services from our facilities for since the outset, basically. But what we're seeing, and the paradigm shift of cloud, which I think is the second major paradigm shift in computing, following the shift from mainframe to client server, is that the service model is now becoming the default delivery model for IT. So instead of buying a whole lot of equipment and wiring it all up and patching it and maintaining it and wearing the risk if it goes down, of course, there's your business is down. The status quo, I believe, will be very quickly delivery as a service. Sure. Or cloud. That is interesting from a data center point of view. We have providers wanting to get close to their users depending on the application. People expect dial tone availability. Mm-hmm. So not only does each data center have to be reliable and physically secure, but you need to have multiple data centers and they all need to be well connected together, so that if you do have an outage in one, then you can still have your service available from another. We're moving from this 2N to N+1
sure.
Type approach to reliability. And then, of course, you need to have a whole bunch of networks available so you can connect out to your users. And then also out to large providers, like Amazon. You can now directly connect from a number of the Equinix facilities into the Amazon cloud. So these are the kind of products that I'm working on, which are obviously very interesting.
So is there software development, those kinds of things happening at Equinix, or is it partnering with ISVs to kind of help that stuff happen?
There is. I mean, we're very careful about being we're carrier neutral data center. So we're actually more than just carrier neutral. We're neutral across the board. We don't want to compete with our customers and partners. Sure. So we do. We don't actually provide the services, the cloud services themselves, but there is, as I said, a lot of innovation going on. We'll provide things like connectivity with cross connects. We've just launched a product called Marketplace, so that customers in the same facility can find each other. And if I deploy, let's say I'm a commodity-based enterprise-grade storage provider, so moving away from the traditional approach to SANs and NAS and so on, to a more direct attached storage approach, I can set that up in any one of the data centers or a number of the data centers, and then make that available through the marketplace to all of the other customers in that data center who can connect over a dedicated fiber and then consume that service and pay as a utility effectively. So that's an alternative. If you're an enterprise or another cloud provider, you can, rather than wheeling in another SAN, you can throw a fiber over the fence and
Sure.
consume that service from the guy next door.
So you guys are going to kind of glue, effectively serve as a lot of different touch points or glue between enterprises or just customers in general, service providers as well, and other service providers or even other public cloud providers.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And what do you think about cloud bursting? It's a pretty awesome thing, isn't it? I had to throw that one in there.
Yeah, you're digging for reactions.
Yeah,
okay.
No. I think we share some of the same sentiment around cloud bursting, right? Everybody's enamored by this whole concept, but they really don't. They don't really have a clue. It just sounds like it's this great thing that's why I'm going to go to the cloud, because I can do cloud bursting.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take the bait. I think that it makes for a great story. It's a pitch that you'll hear quite regularly. The reality is that often the way it's presented isn't really reflected in reality.
Right.
There's a lot of choreography that goes in moving a workload from one place to another, from networking, storage. It sounds easy, and the demos where you drag and drop a virtual machine and it goes from A to B, that's fine if you're running the same version of the same software on the same hardware with layer 2 adjacencies over a massive pipe. You may be able to do that. But I think the reality of moving from a traditional legacy environment on-prem at the moment to a public cloud provider like Amazon
Yep.
and back to handle loads doesn't really make a great deal of sense today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that depends on the application. So if you go after 80 or 90% of the market, which is the enterprise market, all of their apps are legacy apps which can't do that. You have to move boatloads, you have to move the entire bucket. You can't have part of the bucket exist in two different places at the same time. The app's never designed to do that.
Exactly, and this is where big data comes in, and the traditional applications have a big bucket, an SQL, a relational data store, and the reason they have the reason they're designed like that is that we had these ACID constraints for databases, which was a very high level of consistency and durability and so on, which makes sense for certain applications. Sure. Banking, if I walk to an ATM, I don't want, well, I do. The bank doesn't want me to be able to walk up and take $1,000 out of one ATM and then walk next door and take the same $1,000 out of the next ATM. So what they do is they make sure that record is locked and only one person, so everybody sees the same thing at the same time. Now, if I check into St. Paul's here, and which would be unusual, and you see it on Facebook in 5 seconds, and then somebody else sees it in 10 seconds or even 5 minutes.
Sure.
My mother in Perth sees it in 5 minutes if she was on Facebook, which she's not, which is good. Then it doesn't matter. It's not. I haven't lost money. It just doesn't matter. So what we're seeing is people are moving, they're dropping these ACID constraints and saying, okay, for certain applications, another example is an order. If I take an order online, it's going to take me 48, 72 hours to deliver it anyway.
Sure.
What's another 5 minutes for it to make its way to the warehouse?
Sure.
And this is where you have these applications that you can kind of you can grow in one area, in one database, in one data center, and then you can, for example, follow the sun. If it's a trading application, it might move from Tokyo to London to New York, depending on a great CloudSoft demonstration that shows this. And you can just add more resources and then take resources away. Sure. That's what I think cloud bursting will look like. It just doesn't work with legacy architectures.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And I think, being at Joyent, we ran into the same thing where you would just talk to these people who that would be their first, inclination to go to the cloud, is because it's going to save me money. I don't have to pay for infrastructure, and I really have a lot more flexibility in terms of what I purchase. And you always have to shift the conversation to what type of workload do you have? Because to get it done in the traditional sense, and back when I was at EMC, we had vPlex, which would allow you to transition the storage workload, and then by using OTV and some other technologies, move the VM workload. But you look at it in reality, for as much as that solution costs, it sounds awesome, but you really don't need it for the bulk of your workloads. You're not going to shift buckets of huge things, and there are going to be customers that do it sometimes, but more common than not, it's used to migrate from one data center to another that's close by, and it's a migration tool as opposed to a active load balancing or workload kind of based tool.
So here's one of the things that I think is most interesting about Joyent is that, and also other products like OpenStack and so on, that you can run exactly the same thing on the service provider side as you can on the consumer side. You can't take Amazon EC2 and run it in-house at the moment. Microsoft had initially said you couldn't take Azure and run it in-house, but they backtracked on that a little bit. So being able to run certain workloads, be it dev and test, going out to the public cloud for production. Maybe there's certain components that need to be on-premise for maybe their data privacy or PCI compliance, or it's government workloads or something like this. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that model, again, if you've got a homogeneous platform, then things like cloud bursting are a lot easier to do.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we'll kind of wrap it up, and thanks for your time, thanks for coming out, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you over the side.
All right.